Cool. And I know we talked a lot about technical skills, but can you guys speak a little to like the soft skills necessary to be successful as a data scientist?
Yeah, so I talked earlier about presentational ability, and it's really important to be able to explain and convince people that data is useful, that your analysis is important, that it's relevant to the business. I think it's also really, really important to be good at structuring problems, because a lot of the technical skills that you learn are how do I manipulate data in this way, what are the advantages of regression versus trees for a given predictive problem, things like that. But the first part of almost any problem is someone from product management is going to come to you and say, how do I get customers to churn less? And you have a bunch of vague data, and you have a bunch of potential methods. You could use that data to try and reduce churn, but you need to be able to figure out what methods are appropriate, when is the right time to run an experiment, what you do when you run that experiment, and then how to do things within the proper time period and putting the right amount of effort for the problem there. Because you can train an elaborate neural network for almost any prediction problem, but for most prediction problems, linear regression is 100 times easier for you, runs 100 times faster, and you're not going to get more than like 10% extra benefit. So it's not worth it to overwhelm the problem with an unnecessarily elaborate method.
Yeah, I think that's right. I sort of alluded to that earlier. You have to really try and understand what the problem is, and just because a question isn't asked, that doesn't mean that's what the problem actually is. You have to try and understand the reasoning behind it and what the stakeholder is really trying to get out of it. And sometimes it can be obvious, and sometimes it can be very not obvious. And so you don't want to spend a bunch of time training some models, give a result, and you find out that that's not really what they wanted. What they actually wanted was something else. So communication and making sure that sort of the stakeholders are sort of involved as you're iterating through, as you're figuring this out, I think is pretty important.
Well, and what are some of the best ways to gain the experience and build the skills necessary to be a data scientist?
I think, for me personally, I think a capstone project really helps. I spent a lot of time on my capstone project during this program, and pretty much all my interviews want to talk about it, at least to some degree. So it helps to sort of make sure that people know that you have some of the technical skills, but it also allows you to show off, some of the presentation skills, some of the other soft skills we've sort of talked about. You can make a model, but can you show how it does it, what the results are? Can you make it look pretty, at least to the eye? Is it easily digestible as well? I think you can work through that and make sure that gets better over time.
Yeah, I think it's practice, and for that reason, the capstone project is my favorite part of the Springboard curriculum. But I got most of mine by being foisted into the role of math guy at a consulting firm, because I had a physics background and all of my peers had a business background, so I had like a tiny bit more programming ability than anyone else. And really, any way that you can do analyses, compile those analyses, and then share them with other people in that way that lets you practice communication is good and helpful and valid. So, if you go through the program, when you finish your capstones, don't have it on your GitHub and just call it done. Invite some of your friends over and give them some beers and force them to listen to you present it. And go home, for the holidays and explain it to your parents, and they'll be happy to listen to you, but make sure they get it. Because explaining statistics to my mom was something that I spent a lot of time doing in college, and I think that really cashed out a lot when I had to explain it to people with more background in math than a librarian had, but less than I did.